The name of this session is Energy and Water Management Strategies for Operational Excellence. And so I'm going to start off with just a few slides to kind of set the tone, set the pace, if you will. So we're really talking about sustainable manufacturing, and energy and water are really two key factors. So if you look at production execution, they're really an important part of most anybody's production. In fact, I picked up something this morning which I hadn't really thought about, but if your bill of materials doesn't contain energy, I'm sure some of you who make beverages, I'm sure you have water as part of your bill of materials, but just think about energy as being part of your bill of materials. It might make a big difference in terms of managing your costs and production. And of course, energy and water is part of your production execution, and your products and waste and emissions are what comes out the other side, and you want it to be mostly products and not so much waste and emissions. Second point is I want to make is that there's a lot of energy-related issues related to major costs in today's industrial plants. So energy prices, if anyone hasn't noticed, are uncontrollable or at least variable. And so they play a big factor, particularly in some of the energy-intensive industries, which I'll mention in a moment. Energy prices will continue to increase. Every forecast I've seen says that the energy will increase in price. The demand in energy will continue to grow. Fossil fuels production are going to become limited, although it seems like as long as I've been in the business, I've thought we'd eventually run out of fossil fuels, but they seem to keep finding new ways to make fossil fuels, so maybe it'll be a long time after I'm retired. According to some government statistics, energy consumption is going to grow between the end of last year and 2031 by 40%. And guess where most of that consumption is going to grow? It's going to grow in the emerging countries of China, India, and the like. And to the point where out in 2035, most of that energy consumption is going to be in the non-OECD countries. And the cost of energy is continuing to rise. In fact, I just did a spot check before I came to this session, just around lunchtime, and crude oil prices, in case anybody tracks it, is $98.5 a barrel right now. And so imagining it's going to be 125, I think that's a low estimate, frankly. But anyway, those energy costs are going to continue to grow. Now, where are the big industrial energy consumers? Well, they happen to be the industries circled here in the process industries. So it takes a lot of energy in the petroleum industry to produce petroleum products. No big surprise there. But paper industry, we have one of the speakers talking about paper today, and that's a very big energy consumer, as is the other industries you see there. Also, within the energy consumption of industry, where is it consumed? Well, a big consuming source is process heating. In my earlier days when I worked in oil refining, we had fired heaters everywhere. And today, the goal is to capture as much of that heat that you need to use to make your products, but recapture it, reuse it. Machine drives are number two. HVAC facility, HVAC is a third place, and so forth. At the same time, you can see that natural gas is a big source of energy that's being consumed. Now, water-related issues. Water is another very important factor. In fact, last year we had this session was just dedicated to energy only, but looking forward, water is becoming the scarce commodity of the future. We need it for humans. we need something to put our vodka into, right? So water is a very important ingredient in our human existence. It certainly is important in agriculture, but it is a critical factor in industry. The water stress is increasing. Issues around the world, there's not enough water in certain parts of the world. Water is required for many industrial processes, and in fact, if you look at the entire cycle of products, it's amazing how much water plays in the production of products. For example, I was at a OSI event this summer, and I guess I was taken by surprise when we talked about the amount of water that goes into the manufacturing of an automobile. I just didn't sort of put the two together. I wasn't thinking of water being an important factor. But the next time you get into your luxury SUV and you sit into that comfortable leather seat, just think about how much water it took to get that leather seat in that car. It's amazing how much water. So the cost of obtaining and treating water is increasing significantly. Lack of appropriate quality water increases and is becoming a production constraint. In fact, the other thing is, I don't know how many people here have made decisions whether to start or close a facility due to the fact of water shortage or water availability. It's a big factor in terms of deciding where to build certain kinds of plants, particularly the water-intensive plants. Now, agriculture, of course, is a big water user, but over 20% of fresh water globally is used in industrial processes. Now, there's an organization out there, the Water Footprint Network. I thought it was kind of interesting. My associate found this slide for me, and it talks about looking at water from a standpoint of both the consumption as well as the water pollution. So you can see the colors: green water, blue water, and of course gray water, not good. So you look at that from an operational point of view as to how much water you consume, how much you recycle, how much you turns into gray water and waste. And then you also should look at the water in terms of supply chain. So my example of the leather seats is a good example of how water goes through the entire process all the way back to the cattle that originated the leather that was put into the seats. And of course, general water balance. There's water that comes in and is consumed as part of the product you're making. In some industries, water is an important ingredient in the actual end product. Then there's evaporative losses, and of course there's water being recycled or returned to the ground. And finally, to talk about water, where energy and water come together, it takes a lot of energy to purify the water once it's been contaminated, and also there's a lot of usage of water in the production of energy. So without going much further than that, I wanted to make the connection between water and energy. And there's a lot of things going on today. Increased use of variable speed drives and pumps, which help the energy situation. Compressed air systems, a big source of loss, as well as water leakage in the plant. These are kind of things that can be done, measures that can be taken, and I'm sure our speakers are going to talk a little bit about some of these ideas. And then, of course, greater diligence to identify and repair water leaks and so forth. Finally, a year or so ago, we did a survey to talk mostly about energy, and just to get an idea of how well manufacturers are managing their energy. And you could extend this to think in terms of sustainability. So we asked the question, do you have a leader or a czar of energy? And we were a little bit surprised to find that over 40% of the respondents said they have no such energy leader in their company. So they leave it up to plants or some local authority. Furthermore, we asked if there was measurements to measure what's going on with the energy and the water. And we found again, a lot of plants that are very under-instrumented when it comes to measuring these critical resources. So with that, I thank you for your attention for my part of this presentation.